And I swear to you, it happened just like this. I went to walk back inside and I put my hand on the door handle and I heard one of the eagles. What if I told you that you have extraordinary, one-of-a-kind gifts just waiting to be uncovered? I'm Claire Kellums, psychic medium, intuitive guide, and animal communicator, and I'm here to share my personal journey of spiritual growth and healing in the hope that my true lived experiences will ignite something inside you, empowering you to embrace your truest, most aligned self. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into all things spiritual development, manifestation, breaking generational cycles, aligning your life with limitless abundance, and so much more. I am beyond excited to go on this transformative journey with you and witness your growth as you expand into the person you were always destined to be. I wasn't put on this earth to play small, and neither were you. Are you ready? Let's get aligned. Hi everyone. I hope you are having an amazing day. If you are in the Midwest right now on April 4th, 2025, Godspeed to you with the rain because she be flooding everywhere. I swear there is like freaking just buckets of water in our yard right now. Everything is a mess, but I guess I should just be thankful for the rain. There's a lot of it. When I started this podcast, one of the foundational reasons why I wanted to start it was to share my experiences, obviously, and share what I have learned with others who may resonate with it or may feel they can take something from it, or if not, no worries. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to start it was to share with others, like I just said. And I heard a quote right before I actually released the podcast. I was still on the fence, still trying to push myself to do it, and I was still just a little scared to do it. But then I heard the quote on Catherine Zinkina, her Manifestation Babe podcast. One of the guests on her podcast said, if you have the knowledge, it is your responsibility to share it. And that really struck home for me in a lot of different ways. And then I recently found too the quote, gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it is a first step to humanity. And there's a lot of power behind that. And there's a lot of power in sharing knowledge, I feel, because you never know truly when it could greatly impact someone's day, someone's month, someone's year, someone's life. You never truly know how things can affect other people unless you share obviously in a positive way. But, there wouldn't be doctors without someone sharing the knowledge that they had learned with others. And there wouldn't be students without teachers. There wouldn't be what we have today without someone sharing the knowledge that they had learned. So that is a huge factor and a huge reason why I wanted to start this podcast, was to share my knowledge just with whomever resonates with this podcast. Now, on today's episode, I wanted to share with you, I kind of hinted at it in the last episode, but one of the more amazing moments of my life was when I found out I was pregnant with my son, August, of course, but the story and the experience leading up to it was absolutely monumental and just forever ingrained in my memory because of how magical it truly was. And that is what I have come here to share with you today, is how I found out I was pregnant with my son, August. So a little backstory, just because you're going to need this information for later, I promise. My husband lost his father when he was little, around 2. So going into having children, I knew and he knew that we somehow would want to name our child after my husband's father in some way. Now, I'm going to take us back to like 2019 here real quick, maybe even a little further back. It's a little fuzzy, but I think it was around 2019. there was a lot going on at that time. My husband, my sister, and I, we were really enjoying our 20s at that time. So there was a lot going on. But I think it was around 2019. I believe I had already seen 3 doctors at that point who told me I probably would have a very difficult time having children after the age of 24 because I had endometriosis and I had it pretty bad. And on top of this, my husband had cancer when he was a child. So the chemo that he went through made the probability of him being able to have children very slim as well. So kind of going into this, we knew it would probably be very difficult. So I did what I knew to do in that time, and that was to avoid and to shut down and pretend it wasn't happening, because that was just the only coping mechanism I had, was to pretend it wasn't happening. It'll go away. It is what it is. It'll go away. So fast forward to 2022, when I was really starting that first wave of development and understanding mediumship and spirituality and everything just in general. I remember learning about signs and asking for signs and receiving signs and all the things. And at that point, I hadn't done a whole lot with developing other than just listening to podcasts and kind of more so learning and understanding. So it was around, I believe, it was around December. I just had this feeling that we would have a child. And I'm going to back up a little bit because I kind of left out more key detail. So when I was developing and learning, this was all back in summer of 2022. And it was around October-ish when I started having dreams almost every single night that I was holding a newborn baby in my arms. I knew he was a boy, and he had the fullest head of dark hair. And I would have this dream almost every single night, and it would get to the point where I would wake up and I was so sad and I was so upset because I wasn't holding my baby anymore. And when I would have those dreams, I felt the most intense love I had ever felt in my entire life when I was holding this baby in my arms. And I knew he was my baby. I knew he was my son. But then I would wake up in the morning and he wouldn't be there anymore. And that was really hard, and it was really upsetting. And on top of having the knowledge that it might be very, very difficult for us to have children, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so it was around November, the end of November, early December, that I just kind of started having this feeling that we would be having a child. But I was so scared of even trying because of the odds stacked against us. So around the middle of December, I, was listening to podcasts. I was in the middle of kind of learning and developing, and I got this idea one night, or it kind of just came to me. I was like, I'm going to ask for a sign because I haven't asked for one yet. I'm just going to see what happens. That's all I can do. So I had a notebook in front of me, and I wrote the years 2023, 2024, and 2025. Under the year 2023, I wrote the word cactus. 2024, I wrote the word lion. 2025, I wrote the word rose. And I just sat there with it and I said, okay, universe, God, source, whoever, if I am meant to have a child, I feel this child coming in. I feel this child close to me. If I am meant to have this child, will you show me a sign, one of these signs for whichever year he could be coming in? Because I knew he was a boy. And I just left it at that. And I walked away from it and I went back to doing whatever I was doing. I was on my phone, I was reading, I was doing something. And later that night, I was scrolling on Facebook, and obviously I love horses. So I'm in a lot of like horse groups on Facebook, and I was scrolling on Facebook, and you just like aimlessly scroll when you're on social media, and I came across this horse, and I remember just staring at it, and I was like, there's something about this horse that's really piquing my interest right now. And I remember it was like a red, like this sorrel horse, and there was just something about it. So I scrolled up to read the caption, and it had the horse's name in capital letters with two emojis, and one in the front, one in the back. And the horse's name was Cactus. And it had two cactus emojis right in the front and the back of the name. And I remember just sitting there thinking, holy shit, what is this? And so I was like freaking out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And I remember that moment, and I remember thinking, this means something. So I kind of pocketed that for a later date. Now fast forward to Christmas. So my grandmother wrote a cookbook for our family. We have a large family on my grandmother's side, and she and my aunt, they made a cookbook, and they give it to everyone when they get married, or whatever the special occasion is. So I got a cookbook that year for Christmas, and in the cookbook, in the front pages, she does like a little biography about her mother and father, my great grandmother, my great grandfather. And I was reading my great grandfather's biography, and I was just kind of skimming over it, and I was reading about his family, where they came from, where they live, blah blah blah. And as I was reading through it, I came across his father's name, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. His father's name was August. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I remember I said it out loud. I said, my son's name is August. I absolutely knew it. And I just remember having this moment of like, like you have this absolute like euphoric, like holy, like eureka. That's the word I was looking for. Like eureka, I can't even say it. Moment where you're like, holy crap. Like, oh my gosh, that's what I was having. And I was like, my son's name is August. I absolutely know it. And I remember just like walking around the room thinking, oh my gosh, like this is real. This is real. I'm having this insane feeling, like this is so real. And then it hit me, and I was like, I really wanted to name him, my husband and I both did, something after my husband's father. And then it hit me. All of a sudden, I just wanted to check my husband's father, his date of birth and his date of death. And when I looked, his father was born in August. And I was like, there's no freaking way. And then it just so happened that two of the people that are closest to me in my life are my grandfather and my sister, who were both born in August. And then it just hit me again. I was like, oh my gosh, his middle name is my husband's middle name and my husband's father's middle name. They both have the same middle name. And I was like, that's my son's middle name. And it just hit me all at once. I just knew his full name right then and there, right in that moment. I think it was literally Christmas night. I knew his full name, and I knew he was coming, and it was just this whole thing. And it was so much like love and surprise and emotion, like all at the same time. It was so almost overwhelming just having all of this all at once. And from there, we had tried a couple times, and I kept getting a negative test, and I was so defeated. And in that moment, I had this little glimmer of hope that he was coming. And it was actually a few weeks later, I was sitting at my house, but there was just like something nagging at me, like something just like in the back of my mind that was like, just take a test and see. And I had already taken several, and I didn't want to see a negative result again, because I was just so defeated. And then I got this feeling to ask for a sign. So I did. And the only thing I could think of was a cactus because that was the first sign I got. So I was like, well, I'm going to ask for a cactus again. So I just sat there and I again just said, universe, whoever, if I need to go buy a test, will you show me a cactus? And I wanted to take my mind off of it. So I went to town and I went to the farm store because I think I had to get like dog food or something. I can't remember. And at our farm store, there is a U-Haul rental in the same parking lot. And for those of you who are or are not familiar with U-Hauls, they're like these moving trucks. And on the side of them, they have states like written on or painted on them essentially. And they'll have an image for that state. So like Indiana, it might be a cardinal. I don't know. But anyway, so I pull up to the parking lot and I go to get out of my car. I looked up and there was a U-Haul in front of me. And when I say my jaw literally hit the floor, the U-Haul on the side of it was the state of Arizona, and the picture was a huge cactus. And I promptly got back in my car like any person would, and I went and got a test. And I remember I went home, and I know at this point you're thinking like, my God, Claire, just go take the freaking test. I was just so scared. I was so scared that I would get another negative. And so I got home and I thought, you know what? I am not going to take this test right now because I am too scared. And so I tried to take my mind off of it. I went and put it in a drawer and I was like, if it's meant to be, I'll come back to it at a later time. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to read a book because that's something I'll do right now with my mind as, going as crazy as it's going right now. I'll read a book. I did not read the book, but I went and got the book and I stared at the cover for like 15 minutes before I was like, this is insane. I have to do something or I'm going to freak out. So I sat there for a minute and I was like, I'm just going to ask for another sign because what else am I to do here? So a little backstory. We live on a creek. It's a little bit of a bigger creek. The river actually flows into this creek and we live directly across from it. So we have two bald eagles that live directly across the creek. And they nest in a tree that's a little bit in the woods, but we can still kind of see it from our house. I mean, it's still several, a couple hundred yards from our house, but we can see it and we can see them. And they come here to like our house during the winter months, and during the summer months they migrate. But I remember I hadn't really seen them much at all that winter, even though it was winter. And it was February 15th, and I remember sitting there and I was like, I haven't seen those eagles in a really long time. And when they fly, I only ever see one of them. I've only ever seen both of them together one time. And so I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask for another sign, but this one's going to be big. I was like, this one's going to be big. This one's going to be the one that's like, I'm going to know. And so I went outside and I sat on the front porch and I got really scared. I remember thinking like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm just so scared. I just don't want it to be negative. And I sat there and I remember just feeling like so much love in that moment. And so I just asked, I said, all right, universe, if I really am pregnant, if I really am, and I really need to go take that test and like I am for sure pregnant, I wanted to see both of those eagles. I didn't want to see one. I wanted to see both of them. And I knew in saying that it probably wouldn't happen because one, I hadn't seen the eagles, either one of them, in weeks at that point. And I hadn't seen them both together in probably over a year. And so I knew that it would have to be big for it to get my attention. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I asked for too much because that's not going to happen. It's literally not going to happen. I've only ever seen them together once. And I sat there for maybe 15 minutes and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back inside. And I swear to you, it happened just like this. I went to walk back inside and I put my hand on the door handle and I heard one of the eagles. And I turned around and I ran to the end of our porch and looked up. And at the exact same time I looked up, both of those bald eagles flew over my house. And I remember I just sat there in complete shock. And they flew over to their nest on the other side of the creek. And I actually have a picture of this on my phone. It was a little cloudy that day, but the sun would peek out every now and then. I watched them land, and when they landed, the sun came out, but the sun only came out and only shone on the trees around the nest where the eagles landed. I literally just started crying because I didn't know what else to do. I turned around, went back inside, and I went and took the test, and it was positive. And I just remember thinking, holy cow, like this is bigger than me. Like this is bigger than me. This is a connection that I've never known and is so much more than I realized. And it was so beautiful and it was so impactful that when I really started leaning into more the space of sharing with others, I told myself one of the very first experiences I would share was how I found out I was pregnant with August. Because in that moment, I mean, it changed my life forever. It changed how I saw the universe. It changed how I saw nature. It changed how I saw people. It changed so much in me, just that moment, because I knew we were all so much more connected than I ever could have realized. All of us, humans, animals, trees, everybody, we were all so much more connected than anyone I think realizes. And it was huge for me. And so I knew this would be one of the very first experiences I shared, simply because it was the first very big validating thing for me that, oh my gosh, there is a God, there is a universe, there is a source, there is someone there that is connecting us all together. And I just thought it was so beautiful, just every part of it. And what's even more beautiful to me is the fact that my son was a huge part of that too. And then in that moment, even more so, I realized how connected I was with my son. It was this moment of like total oneness and total connection with all, with me, with the eagles, with my son, with the actual sun. It was beautiful. And then come October of 2023, we had the most beautiful son born with the most hair I had ever seen on a baby. He had so much dark hair. And I would look at him sometimes and I knew he was the baby from my dreams. And it really was and is to this day one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. I've had a lot of amazing experiences in my life. I've had a lot of amazing validations happen, marrying my husband. I've had so many wonderful, beautiful things happen to me in my life. But that moment when my son was born and I saw the hair on his head, it was as if everything just came full circle and it was that connection again and everything was just as it should be. It was just magic. It was simply magical. And so that is the story of how I found out I was pregnant with my son, August. And so I'll kind of leave you there with that today. And just remember that if you are someone who is teetering on the fence of wanting to do something else or wanting to share something or wanting to be something but being too scared or being afraid of judgment or being afraid of failure, Please know that if you even have the smallest inkling of desire to want to do the one thing you've always wanted to do, please do it, because this podcast a year ago was such a far off dream of mine that it wasn't even in the realm of possibilities for me. And so I really just want to encourage you to be all that you ever wanted to be, because you are magic yourself and your knowledge is power. So I will leave you there with that today. I hope you all continue to have an amazing day, and I will see you next time. Did you love this episode of the Ultra Aligned podcast? If so, I would be so incredibly grateful if you could leave a glowing review and 5 stars. Your support helps this podcast reach even more people who are ready to step into their light. Have questions or suggestions for topics you'd like me to dive into? I'd love to hear from you. Just shoot me an email at theultraalignedpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for sharing. I love you all. I'll see you next time on the Ultra Aligned podcast.